I remember getting ready to push my button. You have your radios, internal and higher, and I'm ready to call Mark and be like, "Hey man, this ain't right." I remember pushing my button down, and it's like I initiated two machine guns. I push it down, and it's like brr, two machine guns just open up from inside the target building, and immediately 7 to 9 American soldiers drop in the compound. On many of the body armor, there's a little carrying handle. There's a little handle on the back. I grabbed his carrying handle to start to drag him. And as soon as I grabbed it, the machine gun bursts. And I grab the handle and it breaks off. And I fall on my butt. And the machine gun is all like at my chest and head level. Hey man, I'll give my all, but just let me live through this and be a dad to my boys.
I don't know if you can talk about this or if you even want to, but can you talk about what your Silver Star was for?
So first of all, good on you for saying the Silver Star was in Iraq. I think the Google says it was for Afghanistan, which that's the army for you, right? So you're probably going off of my story, but yeah, I think if you Google my name and Silver Star, it'll say I got it for Afghanistan, which just isn't right. You know the uh, and so as awards go, the Bronze Star is there's two things for the Bronze Star. It's service, like if it's distinguishable service, or it also is like recognition for achievement in combat. You know what I mean? Without and even with a Bronze Star, you can get a Valor device and all that kind of stuff. I think all my Bronze Stars are just straight up, just for the amount of work we did in combat. And then the Silver Star is a Valor device, and then the Distinguished Service Cross and the Medal of Honor. So as you start getting up into those, like something has to seriously go wrong, right? And it's a good soldier sets the conditions where those things don't happen. The men and women at Delta, I mean, they've all done things heroic enough to be awarded any of those awards, you know. And that was one of the things that we always talked about was you don't get awards for just doing your job. Like you're expected to do dangerous shit. When you do dangerous shit, don't expect to get an award for it. And that's kind of the way that it was going in. And most of the time, and we prided ourselves on setting the conditions where you didn't need to do heroic shit. You just, you know what I mean? It worked perfectly. Well, as I was talking about when we were in Iraq and both Afghanistan, we became this force multiplier. So as the heavy fighting wound down, and we had elements that were really going after the higher level targets, we started to work by, through, and with other forces to help them become better, to be a force multiplier across a wider footprint. And that's what we were doing at that time. We were spread out with just kind of 4, 5, 6-man teams with a bunch of different U.S. units, helping them target effectively and efficiently and getting them to the right place at the right time with the right information. And that's what this was. This started out as an op. It was our intel. It was out not far from Samara again, that area that we were talking about. That whole region is just terrible country. And it was our lead, it was our information, and we flew out there and linked up with a conventional force, and they were going to go and take down the target. And one of the things, the tactics that was developed that the regular army was doing, and even special operations forces were doing, is this thing called the call out. If you've heard of that before, where especially if you are concerned about non-combatants, women and children, and you want to separate the women and children, you would surround the compound, you would surround the environment through a bullhorn or loudspeaker. Tell the bad guys, you're there for them to send out the women and children. Sometimes they would, sometimes they wouldn't. The problem with the call out is it has to have escalation, right? Like if the guy decides he's not going to let out the women and children, well, how do you continue to escalate to influence him to do that? And if he's really dug in with his mindset, now he knows you're coming, etc. So going back to the style of fighting that we did, we really didn't do the call out unless the guy knew we were coming. You know what I mean? If it was a follow on target or somehow we had tipped our hand, then it made sense. He already knows we're coming. The call out seems like a way to mitigate that risk. But hitting him hard and fast, and the first thing he knows is a muzzle in his face, you're separating the combat. You know what I mean? You don't have to work on that escalation. So I was never a huge fan of it, um, at least for the style of warfare that I was involved in and the culture of the guys that I was working with. But it was a bit of a safe bet for certain folks. And this conventional force, they were going to do a call out, and it seemed fine because the escalation of it, we didn't understand or recognize that there were any non-combatants on the target. So my thinking was, hey, call out's fine. It's safe. The way that the compound was set up, there's plenty of space to have concealment and cover. You call those guys out with their hands up, you take them captive, good day. If they want to fight, you lay waste to them and it's over. There's no non-combatant. So it seemed like a good option to me. So we get the folks this conventional unit on target. It's a company's worth of dudes. Okay, so the a captain, a company commander, is the person in charge. And when I say a company's worth of dudes, it was about 2 platoons, which is around 25 or 30 guys each, that were moving to the site of the target, and then there was another 30-ish guys that were back with the trucks because you couldn't bring the trucks in to this village because there was a bunch of, canals and things that they weren't structurally, um, strong enough to to bring those trucks, you know? So we lead them to the target, and they surround the building, and I've got my guys kinda spread out all over. I'm on one side of the building, kinda looking at the primary target behind a wall. My sergeant major's over there, our team leader's over here, and we're all just kinda watching it, and I'm confused. It's nighttime, and I'm confused because they're not doing a call out the way I expected it to be done or the way we had talked it through. They weren't up on the walls. They didn't have their guns in. They just didn't have the effective protection, and they just started walking up towards the building. And I don't think they even had a bullhorn with standoff. So they walked right into the compound, um, and they started throwing rocks at the door and the window of this compound with a couple of Al Qaeda guys in there. And then they started yelling things in Arabic, which seemingly were, you know, come out with your hands up, whatever, whatever. And I'm watching all this unfold thinking, "Oh, man, this ain't right." Like, they're exposed. This is they're not doing this right. And I remember getting ready to push my button. You have your radios, internal and higher, and I'm ready to call Mark and be like, "Hey, man, like, this ain't right," you know? And I remember pushing my button down, and it's like I initiated 2 machine guns. I push it down, and it's like, "Brr," 2 machine guns just open up from inside the target building. And immediately, I forget the numbers, 7 to 9 American soldiers drop in the compound. And the interpreter, like, low crawls up. So it's 2 windows, and then there's that space in between. So there's a guy, I think it was the interpreter, who's lying in between those windows, and there's American soldiers in various positions of woundedness all lying in the courtyard, and these machine guns just keep going off, and they're doing a good job. They're like talking. It's like burp, 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 burp. I mean, it was really sustained effective fire, which told me these guys are soldiers. These guys are trained. They know exactly what it is they're doing. And then things quieted down. All that happened in the blink of an eye, and I climb over the wall because I'm trying to angle the targets because there's a door that's open. So it's 2 windows, and it's actually an open door that isn't closed for some reason, and I'm trying to get an angle to shoot rounds through the door, and, like, they're way deep in the building, but I'm like, "Ah, maybe I can just ricochet and tumble some rounds in there and hit these guys." So I climb over the wall, and I get behind a vehicle. There was a vehicle that was sitting, crosswise, um, and I'm trying to drop some rounds, and I see the dudes all starting to move. Like all of us are starting to move inside the compound, but I see like a bunch of guys like jumping over the walls going that way. And I'm like, what the hell? What the heck is happening? And ISR is up in the air and it's talking to me and I'm, it's they're telling me, are you guys exfilling? And I'm like, no. He's like, "Oh, well, the there's like 30 dudes moving back to the trucks." And I'm like, "Well, that ain't us. We got something to deal with, you know?" So I'm down behind that car trying to skip rounds in this building, and this American, um, not too much further from me to the wall away. Like it's about that far from where he was. Maybe a little, maybe the length of this full room. And I think he's dead. He's crumpled and he's laying up against the wall in kind of a weird position. And he moves. And as soon as he moves, they they shoot more at him, into him. And he's like, "Hey," he yells, "Hey, come get me. I can't move." And I'm like, "Dude, there's 2 machine guns between you and me. Like, you're gonna have to crawl to me, you know? I can't get to you without getting shot." And he's like, I can't move my legs. I can't move." And as this is going on, it's like they keep shooting him, you know? I'm like, "Fucking hell, what am I gonna do?" Um, and I look around and there's everyone else is occupied, right? Like, a couple guys are on the roof. They're trying to cut through the roof to be able to drop a charge into the building. You know, other guys are suppressing fire, trying to keep the machine guns from shooting. And I'm like, "Okay, there's nobody else." And I write about it in my book, it's I really felt like I'm gonna get a rash of shit for this. Like, I'm there's 100% chance I'm gonna get shot. Like, there's 100% chance I'm gonna get shot. I just hopefully it's, in the extremities or in my plate or something like that, you know? Um, I was like, I'm gonna wake up in the hospital and their guys are just gonna be like, "Hey, hero." You know what I mean? "Who you think you are, John Wayne?" You know what I mean? And I'm just like, I do not feel like the guff. You know what I mean? Like, that's literally what's going through my mind. I'm like, I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't even be in the compound. I should be controlling, you know what I mean? But here I am. It was like, all right, I just gotta go. Um, and again, like we talked about, I had like this acceptance that I could die in war. You know what I mean? I certainly could get hurt and shot in war, and I accepted that. But I also feel like I had a bit of a, kind of a unwritten, we didn't sign it, agreement with God where it's like, "Hey man, I'll give my all, but just let me live through this and be a dad to my boys. Like, take a arm, take a leg, I don't care. Leave me one of each." You know what I mean? I don't want to have 0 legs or 0 arms. That life sucks. You know what I mean? But 1 arm, 1 leg, I'm fine. I can do all the stuff I want to do. It was kind of like this unwritten agreement. The prayer talk is like, we're good, right? We're square. Like, you're going to let me live, and you will take care of this." And I really felt that was the kind of the agreement we had, and and that was kind of how I felt too. Standing there, I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna go get this guy. Like, remember, not dead, not both arms, not legs, and not the balls." I don't know if we talked about the balls. Okay, let me be specific. Let's have a little contract clause. Nobody shoots me in the balls. All right, because the interesting thing is you're taught in close quarters battle to present your plate. Your plate's about this big, and it really does cover your vitals. If you're getting shot outside the plate this way, it's really not that big a deal. I don't want it, but it's not that big a deal. It's getting shot this way. You know what I mean? So we even have body armor where you've got the main plate and then you have these little plates on the side, but you need these open spaces so your arms can move. Because that's where guys were getting killed, was getting shot through the side. I mean, it tears right through your body. So, you're taught to kind of present your chest. That's what I want you to shoot. Not over here and not down here. Like, shoot, right? This is what you're supposed to shoot at, right? And if you hit one of my arms, that's fine. I can live through that, but it's gonna hurt, you know. So you're taught to present your plate. And even, when you come into a room, or, as you're approaching a building, you're kind of like puffing your chest out and getting really square. It kind of looks silly. And that was the decision I'm making. I'm like, okay, I got to go from here to there. Sideways is not good, because I get, a machine gun through the side. It's over. I got to figure out how to present my chest, And then we used to have these little things that you would clip on, and it was a triangular plate. We called them the dick plate, because it protected your dick. And before we would do hits, guys would kind of talk. You're like, you wearing your dick plate? You're like, nah, I'm not wearing my dick, because it really depended on like how sure you thought you were going to get in a gunfight, and what that gunfight was going to look like, right? Like if you think I'm going in a room and it's going to be a gunfight, everyone's wearing dick plates. You know what I mean? If it's like a run and gun where you're like chasing dudes through the woods, or through the groves, or even through the city, it's like, dude, you don't want that dick plate, because it bounces, and it smashes your dick. You know what I mean? So like the last thing you want to do is be like chasing a guy and have to be like hold your dick plate with one hand. So it was like, hey, is this a run and gun fight? Is this a chase? What are we doing? You know, and I don't for whatever reason, like none of us were wearing the dick plate. I think it was I think it's because we flew in. I don't remember exactly. One, we didn't think we were going to be engaged. We thought the conventional forces were doing it, and I think also because we flew in and took vehicles, that it's just kind of awkward, like to sit all hunched over. So again, I look down. I'm like, I should have worn my dick plate. Too late. Don't have it on. You know. So I do this kind of weird, like prancy runny thing, kind of sideways. Looking like I'm in ballet or something. I'm like, I'm running sideways to this dude, and his name turns out to be Anthony. And uh, I said this before to a bunch of other people. Anthony, if you're hearing this, reach out. I'd like to say hi. I Google stalked you. You know, he lives in Arizona. He's a he's a skydiving instructor, and he's doing fine. And it was hard for me to tell like how disabled he is. Um, but at the time, I didn't know his name was Anthony. But I'd like to see him. Um, and I've been hesitant because I don't know what Anthony remembers, and I don't necessarily want to like break it open. And what he might remember, he might be mad about. Because he might remember calling for help and me going, dude, you can't be a pussy. You need to crawl over here. I'm not coming to you. You know what I mean? And like that might be the last thing he remembers. But Anthony, I did run over there without a dick plate and grab you. So I'd love to share a beer. But so I run over, and on many of the body armor, I don't remember if it was ours or not. There's a little carrying handle. There's a little handle on the back, to hang on stuff and all that, and grab. And I grabbed his carrying handle to start to drag him. And as soon as I grabbed it, the machine gun bursts, and I grab the handle and it breaks off, and I fall on my butt, and the machine gun is all like at my chest and head level. So I fall down, and it's all like right above my head. I mean, it was like the Reservoir Dogs. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, and all this thing flies, and I look, and I'm like, jeez, because you can see. I mean, the wall above me is just like machine gun. It was like two blasts. It was like right to left and left to right, and all of it missed me. And I'm like, And then I don't remember. I think I grabbed his shoulders. I don't remember how I grabbed it. It was one hand somehow, but that was gone. So I grabbed something and I start dragging him. And as soon as I get him out of this like crumpled mess, like blood just starts spurting everywhere. Like because he was shot through both legs. Like when he said he couldn't move, he couldn't move. He was shot through both legs. He had a femoral bleed, and he had an arterial bleed under his armpit. So as soon as I like yanked him and it went like this, it was just like blood fountains going off, and I'm like, you know. Um, so I drag him. It only takes me a few seconds to get him from where he was to behind this car, and then our EOD guy was with me, Scott, and Scott starts putting pressure. I don't remember. We switched back and forth between the armpit and here, and we're just jamming gauze and coagulant into both of those. And I don't really remember Anthony saying anything. I think he was unconscious. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I don't remember saying anything until later. I think he was unconscious, and at this time we were switching off, trying to stop the bleed for Anthony and put tourniquets on him. engaging that building, and then the building behind me, like kitty cornered to me, this this dude kept popping his head out. It was dark, but the light was on, so I could see him and I could see his wife. They kept like stepping into the doorway, and I'm just, I'm looking this way. I've got Anthony down here, and then it's like over here, and I keep having to look around, and I'm like, "Hey, Scott, face those guys." When he was putting pressure on, like, I don't know what's happening. I don't. They're non-combatants, you know. And this was one of those events where we talk about like the math you're doing in your head. I'm like, look, dude, you show your face one more time, I'm going to shoot it off. Like, do you not understand what's happening here? And I can't help this guy and run the risk of getting shot in the back, you know? Um, and then they pull it's well known with the Mogadishu stuff. The woman standing in the threshold of the doorway like this, and I see the guy like peeking from around her, and I'm thinking, dude, don't do this. You know what I mean? Like, you pull out a gun, I'm gonna do my best to shoot you, but dude, please don't do this. And then he is underneath his wife, and he, like, lifts up, he's, like, between her legs, and he's looking around, he's in the prone looking around, and I don't see a weapon or anything, so I just, um, I shoot some rounds, like, and skip them off the ground and into, like, the door jamb to my right, their left, just to be like, "Hey, dude," and I think I had some tracers in there, so they saw it, and as soon as I did that, they, like, disappeared. And they didn't show up again until everything was taken care of. Then as this was happening, uh, the our 2 guys got up on the roof. They had smashed through the roof and dropped in a charge, and the charge went off, and it eliminated the threat on those guys. And then we were able to kinda have a moment and clean up the objective and really start exfilling all of the dudes. Um, and I ra I me and my EOD guy, Scott, we package up Anthony. He's getting set out on a stretcher. Um, that's when I remember him talking because we get it to the medic, and he also had a sucking chest wound. And a sucking chest wound, you feel like you're drowning because your lungs are filling with fluid. So, like a telltale sign of a sucking chest wound is somebody won't lay flat. They'll always sit up because you feel like you're drowning. So even if you're like almost like, I could be wrong, medics would know better. Even like unconscious, like you'll sit up because it's this involuntary reaction. So, you put people on stretchers to carry them out, and he kept sitting up. And then our medic realized he had a sucking chest wound. He he uh, he puts the seal on and pokes it. I forget what that's called. Um, and then Anthony's just berating his guys. He's like, "What do you know what? You fucking cowards!" Because like they're all gone. You know what I mean? Like, he sees the only people fighting is us. His dudes are all gone, you know? Um, and he's yelling at him. I remember that. I was like, "Yeah, that's pretty cool." Um, and I go over to this was not in order because that was a little bit later as we took him to the vehicles to move. But so I'd gone in and we cleared that room with the man and the woman, and they were just standing there like this. Like they were just Darwin Awards, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, "Dude, you know how close you were to getting killed? Like, you didn't like, there's 2 machine guns, like." And then as I'm coming back from checking on that house, so main target building is now dropped. Those knuckleheads were over there. I come walking back to kinda check if we had left anything, or kit by that vehicle, and all of a sudden, this bush is shaking off to my right. And I kinda jumped back, and I put my IR light on, and it was an American soldier.
What's up, guys? Thank you so much for taking the time to watch the interview. As you could probably tell, this is a brand new channel. So if you got anything out of this at all, please like the video, leave me a comment, tell me what you thought, tell me who you'd like to see on the show. I see every like, I read every comment, and I appreciate all of it, especially in the beginning, because as you know, that kind of support goes a long way on these platforms. So most importantly, I have some awesome guests coming up in the future for interviews. So please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of them. But again, thank you for your time. Appreciate the support and hope to see you again soon.